Hello.
It was one of those cool evenings in New York City, when the city was filled with the noise of the evening streets, the twinkling of lights, and the sounds of conversations in coffee shops. In the heart of the city, there was an upscale restaurant known for its sophisticated atmosphere, exclusive menu, and incredibly high standards of service. It was a place where the rich and famous came to enjoy not only food, but also recognition of their status. Everything in the restaurant was brought to perfection, from the elegant interior design to the crystal chandeliers that cast warm light on the luxurious tables. The staff, dressed in impeccable uniforms, moved in a coordinated manner, like a well-oiled machine. The manager, Mary, who had been working here for many years, considered herself one of the key people in the establishment. She was confident that she understood every customer before they even placed an order. Mary was known for being demanding and strict. She was quick to evaluate visitors, paying attention to their clothing, behavior, and overall appearance. She served those who looked rich and important with special attention, and those who, in her opinion, did not meet the level of the restaurant were met with cold indifference. For her, it was a game in which she considered herself the best. That evening, the restaurant's door opened, and a middle-aged man walked into the room. He was wearing a simple dark sweater, jeans, and a jacket that looked quite worn. His appearance clearly contrasted with the sophisticated environment of the restaurant. The man slowly looked around, as if assessing the atmosphere, and confidently walked toward the reception desk. His gait was calm, but there was a certain inner confidence in it that went unnoticed by Mary. When she saw him, her gaze changed to a cold and critical one. She immediately noticed that his clothes did not meet the standards of her idea of restaurant customers. It was almost a personal insult to her. Mary had always believed that everyone who walked into a restaurant should look like they had just stepped off the cover of a fashion magazine. And this man clearly did not meet her expectations. She slowly approached him, as if trying to show her displeasure. The other employees saw her reaction, but did not interfere. They knew that Mary did not like to be contradicted. She confidently believed that her experience and status allowed her to make decisions about who deserved to be here and who did not. The man asked for a table, and Mary decided to show that his presence here was rather an exception. She led him to a table in the far corner of the room, not far from the kitchen. It was a place that was rarely used for guests and was usually left empty. It had a look that contrasted sharply with the rest of the room. There was no subtle lighting, and the sounds of the kitchen were much louder. The man sat down at a table, and Mary left the menu on the table, looking like she was doing him a great favor. She did not hide her arrogance and returned to the counter, where she continued to chat with the other employees. She didn't even make an attempt to check if he was comfortable. For her, this was another case where she could show her superiority. The rest of the evening passed in a similar fashion. Mary rarely approached her husband's table, and when she did, her tone and mannerisms were downright dismissive. She made no effort to provide him with quality service, instead focusing her attention on what she considered to be more important guests. Her behavior remained as cold and indifferent as it had been at the beginning. Her husband, meanwhile, was calm. He did not react to her arrogance, and did not even seem to notice it. He was carefully examining the interior of the restaurant, listening to the soft sounds of music and watching the staff work. There was something in his behavior that aroused the curiosity of some of the other guests, who also noticed how he was being treated. When the man finished his dinner, he quietly left the restaurant without attracting too much attention. But this encounter left a mark in the memory of many. Mary had no idea that this simple visitor would soon change her life and work. She saw him as just another guest who, in her opinion, did not match the level of the establishment, but she had no idea who he really was. The next day, life in the restaurant continued with its usual rhythm. Mary started her day by checking reservations and training the staff. Her confidence was unchanged. She believed she had everything under control. As usual, guests began to fill the room, and Mary made sure everything looked perfect. However, in the afternoon, the manager came to the restaurant with news that aroused everyone's curiosity. He announced that a new owner would visit the restaurant today. The news quickly spread among the staff, causing excitement and a little tension. Mary was interested too, but her face remained impassive. She was sure that the new owner was another rich man whom she would easily impress with her competence. Soon, the restaurant's door opened again, and the same man who had been here the day before entered the room. He was wearing the same simple clothes, with the same calm look. Mary recognized him immediately, but this time her look changed to one of surprise. What was he doing here again? Before she could say anything, the manager approached him and greeted him politely, showing respect. This moment came as a real shock to Mary. She watched as the manager exchanged a few words with him and then gestured to one of the best tables in the room. The other employees began to whisper, realizing that this man was not just a regular customer. Mary, though she tried to remain calm, felt her thoughts jumble in chaos. She wanted to find out who this man was and why the manager was treating him this way. She walked closer, trying not to draw attention to herself, but at the same time gather as much information as possible. Meanwhile, the man took a seat at the table and started talking to the manager. Their dialogue was discreet, but the atmosphere was changing. The other guests noticed it too and watched with interest. Soon, the manager raised his hand, attracting the attention of the entire staff, and announced that he had an important announcement to make. He introduced the man as the new owner of the restaurant. His words sounded clear and confident, like a bell ringing in the silence. There was a pause in the room, during which Mary felt her hands go cold. She couldn't believe that the same customer she had dismissively served the day before was now her new boss. The other employees, although shocked, quickly began to show their respect. Mary, on the other hand, stood back, feeling mixed emotions: shame, surprise, and fear for her job. Her self-confidence turned to uncertainty in an instant, and she realized that she had a serious conversation ahead of her. After the announcement of the restaurant's new owner became public, the atmosphere in the restaurant changed. The guests whispered and the staff tried to continue working, but their interest was riveted on the man who was now talking to the manager. Despite his simple appearance, the man radiated a calm confidence that made everyone around him wonder who he was. Mary, who stood a little to the side, could not gather her thoughts. Only yesterday, she had been dismissive of this man, convinced that he was not worthy of their restaurant. And now it turned out that he was the one who would decide her professional fate. Her hands were trembling, but she tried to hide it as she watched what was happening. The man got up from his seat and gestured to the entire staff to gather. The employees, though surprised, came closer. Mary also had no choice but to join the group. His voice was calm, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "I am very happy to be a part of this restaurant. From the moment I decided to become its owner, I wanted to make it not only a place of fine dining, but also a place where every guest would feel important." He stopped, looked around the room, and added, "But in order to achieve this, we all need to learn to see not only the appearance of people, but also their essence." His words were a direct reference to what had happened the day before. Mary felt her heart begin to beat faster. She knew this moment would be crucial. The man continued, "Yesterday I came here to see how the team works, and I have to admit I saw a different attitude towards the guests. This is a signal to me that we need to change our approach to service." He looked at Mary again, and although his gaze was calm, she could feel the weight of it. "Mary," he said, "I know you've been here a long time and have a lot of experience. But I have also seen that your approach to guests could be more sensitive. Every person who enters this restaurant deserves respect, regardless of their appearance." These words were said without aggression, but their meaning made Mary feel ashamed. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, trying to hide the tears that began to gather in her eyes. The man concluded his speech by saying, "We are all learning, and I am confident that with your help we will make this restaurant a place that people will love not only for the food, but for the attitude." He smiled, and that smile eased the tension among the staff. After that, everyone went back to their jobs, but a sense of change was in the air. Mary stayed alone for a few minutes, thinking about how one situation could change everything. She knew that she needed to rethink her attitude towards work and people if she wanted to remain a part of this restaurant. The next day at the restaurant started with a lot of tension. Each employee tried to do their best to make a good impression on the new owner. Mary, who couldn't stop thinking about yesterday's situation, tried to focus on her duties, but her every step was filled with doubts and worries. The man who had impressed everyone with his calmness and restraint the day before visited the restaurant again. This time he toured the kitchen, greeted the chef, and discussed the details of the menu. He spoke to the staff as if he were an old friend, asking questions, listening to the answers, and, most importantly, always thanking them. His behavior created a completely new atmosphere. Toward lunchtime, he invited Mary to a private room for a conversation. She nervously wiped her hands with a towel to hide her excitement, but her face expressed anxiety. In the room, he invited her to sit at a table with a glass of water at the ready. The man started the conversation with simple questions about her experience at the restaurant and how she saw her role in the team. Mary talked about her years of work, how she tried to keep the restaurant at a high level. She admitted that she was sometimes overly critical, but she was always driven by the desire to provide the best service possible. The man listened attentively without interrupting, and then said quietly, "I appreciate your dedication, but sometimes the desire to achieve perfection can overshadow the most important thing, humanity. In this restaurant, we work not only to create beautiful dishes, but also to make every guest feel important." His words were direct but friendly at the same time. Mary felt something inside her change. She realized that her behavior yesterday was not only a mistake, but also an opportunity to rethink her principles. She thanked him for his honesty and promised that she would work on her attitude. After this conversation, Mary felt like a different person. She went to her colleagues, apologized for her harshness, and said she wanted to change. Her words were sincere, and the team understood. Everyone started working with renewed energy, inspired by the owner's example. That evening, the restaurant worked flawlessly. The guests felt warmth in every gesture, every dish, every word of the staff. Mary, who was now communicating with the guests not as a critic but as a friendly host, finally realized that humanity and attention to detail are the best recipe for success. The next morning, the restaurant opened with renewed energy. All the employees were gathered in the main hall, where the new owner decided to have one last meeting before the start of the day. The atmosphere was filled with excitement, but also hope. People had already seen their restaurant change and were waiting for his final words. The man, as always, calmly and confidently addressed the team. "This restaurant is more than food. It's a place where people should find comfort, warmth, and genuine care. We don't just serve food, we create emotions." His words elicited tacit approval from the staff. He mentioned the importance of each role in the team, how each employee, from the cook to the waiter, creates an atmosphere that stays in the guest's memory. "Your efforts, your friendliness, your attention to detail, all of this makes a restaurant special," he said. After his speech, he turned to Mary. "Mary, you have a lot of experience and a lot of potential. I see that you are ready to change and inspire others. I want you to be an example of how we can combine professionalism with humanity." Mary, slightly embarrassed, thanked him. She felt that she had been given a new chance and decided to make the most of it. She promised to do her best to make the restaurant a place where people would want to come back not only for the food, but also for the atmosphere. That day, the restaurant worked like never before. The staff interacted with the guests with a sincere smile and care. Every dish was served with love, and even the smallest details were thought out. Guests noticed the changes and praised the new approach. In the evening, when the working day was over, the staff gathered in the hall to summarize the results. The new owner thanked everyone for their work and said, "This is just the beginning. Together we will create a place that will be not just a restaurant, but a symbol of hospitality and warmth." His words inspired the team. After that evening, Mary became a completely different person. She learned to look at her work not as a duty, but as an opportunity to give people joy. and the restaurant began a new chapter in its history, leaving only the best impressions in the hearts of its guests.
Bye bye.